All right, fans. Woo! Welcome, fans. Welcome to the Working Fans Podcast. Yeah, let's put that W thing back up there. Oh, you're excited, AJ.
Hey, some days when you're lagging and you're sitting there in your car and it's been a long day and you got to go home and your wife's got your lawnmower ready for you, the garbage
Mm-hmm.
needs to be taken out.
Sure.
Make sure that you're ready. Make sure you've got the energy that is needed to get fired up. And you can do that by using the code FANSWORKING, and you'll save 10% off of your dubby, that juice that you need to keep everything loose. Woo!
That's right. That juice, baby. Now, AJ, for fans who don't know, who may be tuning in here, you used to be a professional wrestler, correct?
Yeah, that's a vicious rumor I keep hearing. I did, and I was trained. Last week was a tough week for me over the last 2 weeks, quite frankly. We lost Adrian Street. Adrian Street is the person who actually trained me to wrestle professionally. It's a sad day for me. Back in 1995, when I was a young kid, I was, God, how old was I? 19 years old. 19 years old. I went down there and I trained with Adrian, and I had seen Adrian on a few different programs, so I didn't know exactly what to expect because he had a very feminine persona. He was always a bad guy. It was a very interesting world, and obviously not having been brought in on any kind of kayfabe at the time, I didn't know exactly what to expect. But I can tell you what I got. I got a great training from him. I got a great ability to work in the ring technically. But here's what I got that I didn't expect. I went down there during Christmas time. So I was a young 19-year-old kid. You're talking about alone on my own during Christmas. Him and Miss Linda, his wife, who was also his valet, invited me into their home for Christmas, gave me Christmas dinner, shared stories with me about what it was like growing up a kid, working coal mines and going into wrestling and going across. I always had more hair in that time period than Brock Anderson, for the record. I looked more like a Backstreet Boy at that point. But it was one of those things where I can never put a price tag. And even through the years, at different times, I would reach out and I would talk to him. He was a great mentor, great person to talk to. I talked to him years ago when he had his first health scare with the cancer, and he's going to be missed. No matter when I reached out to him, I could always count on him being honest with me. He wasn't somebody who pulled punches. Even though he trained me when I first came up and worked in New England, he was honest with Joe Eugenio, told him, hey, this kid's got great potential, but I mean, he trained with me for a short period of time. He's still green, still needs that work, still needs to be tuned in. He was never going to put you in a situation that wasn't fair to you. And so, from the bottom of my heart, I've already sent out my best wishes to Miss Linda. But from the bottom of my heart, Adrian, you're going to be missed. Those of us who knew you in the sport, we loved you. And thank you for taking this young kid under your wing.
Awesome. Now, did you any funny stories? Anything you remember?
Oh, funny stories. Oh, absolutely. So we had a kid who, when I was down there, he was only there. He only lasted like 2 days. He was bigger than I am. I'm 6'3". He had to be about 6'6". And Adrian took him down with a knee bar, where he just stepped inside the sole of his, because Adrian was all of about 5'5", 5'6". And this kid was talking. He's like, yeah, but what happens if you wrestle somebody my size? I mean, yeah, none of those little tricks are going to work on somebody my size. It took Adrian all of about 2 seconds to take this 6'6" guy down to the ground and stretch him like he was preschooler.
So
to me, that's a funny little story.
Yeah, no, Adrian could go, and I heard from a documentary too. Miss Linda was also very tough.
Oh, she was very tough. The other thing is, and Dave, you've seen this picture. I've long since lost this picture. One of the first things that they recommended for me was they had me in Shawn Michaels like tights with a feathered robe, that was sequenced, and it was all made by hand by Adrian Street. And I literally looked like a kid on Halloween trying to dress up to play wrestler, just because I hadn't come into my own yet and really wasn't ready to be that person. Best advice he ever gave me? Always when you go into locker room, respect those that are around you, respect those that have paid the price. No, whether you're wrestling in a gym where these guys have wrestled for years and are only weekend warriors or whatever you might think of them, they've given their body to the crowd, whether it's 4 people in the crowd or 1,000 people in the crowd. These guys are giving their body. They're trusting you with their body. So always have respect for the people that you're working with.
So, AJ, thank you. That's some good stories. I do. We'll transition into the topic today, and before we get into the timely topic of the Usos, are they the best tag team? And I know some people are gonna think that's crazy at first, but when we talk about it, you'll see why it's a hell of an argument. However, before we get to, obviously this is subjective. All right, we all have different time periods of wrestling we watch. So I'm just gonna, AJ, quick, your 3 favorite tag teams.
Go ahead. Midnight Express.
Yep.
After that, probably the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs.
The British Bulldogs. All right. So 1980s kind of time period, right?
Now the problem is that I can mix about 6 different teams into there, like Iron and Tully, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew. I love all of those tag teams. On any given day, they can be interchangeable.
Steiners, Road Warriors, Freebirds.
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'll be honest with you. When you brought this topic to me, it's easy to look at them because of the length of their run and go, yeah, greatest tag team of all time. But to me, this is the old Rocky Marciano argument. Who did they fight in their time period? How did those teams match up against the teams that teams in the past had to match up to? You don't have, did they have the quality like your Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express? Did they have Bulldogs versus Bret Hart versus the Hart Foundation? Did they have those teams? Look at the teams that are lost, the Killer Bees, the Rougeaus. How good were those teams? And they're not even mentioned in the greatest teams in that time period. So it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, Usos, you're the best.
Right. But to their credit, for people who are going to just dismiss these guys, all right, and I'll throw some teams out there they faced, the New Day, the Shield, again, but we don't have that deep, like you're talking about, like names, right?
Well, and even with the Shield, was the Shield actually tag teams, or were they just interchangeable wrestlers put together as singles to put into a tag team?
They were tag,
and that's what most of tag team wrestling is now. Is hey, let's see if these two guys stick together.
But if you look at the top 5 reigning longest champs of all time, the Valiant Brothers, Jimmy and Johnny, 370 days. The Fabulous Kangaroos, Costello and Roy Hefferman, Al Costello, Roy Hefferman, 409 days. And then 3, this is where we kind of get a little more modern, Demolition, Action Smash, 478. The New Day, 483. And then the Usos, 622. They shatter. And the Usos are the only legit team to have ever headlined a WrestleMania.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yes.
And you can't take that away from them. Unfortunately, the first WrestleMania was headlined by tag teams, but they were not legitimate tag teams. I did enjoy that Hogan T run, but I'm not taking anything away from the Usos.
I know you're not. No.
I am a fan of the Usos. I think the Usos are one of the great tag teams of all time. I just have trouble putting them there. Part of the reason why they're there where they are is politics and wrestling. Let's face it. If you don't have the Bloodline storyline, do the Usos get to the main event of WrestleMania? And yeah, they're a major part of it. Don't get me wrong. But to me, that's more factional than it is them as a tag team.
Right. And honestly, like I said, now, I guess the better argument would be maybe, are they the best current tag team? And to me, it comes down to 2 teams. You know who the other one is.
Yeah, are you talking about work rate, or are we talking about total match? Because I actually like the other team better.
I agree. FTR, technically, they can bring it off. But
but now wait a minute, because you're missing a team here. There's a whole audience out there that would say the Young Bucks are the greatest tag team right now.
They would.
We could hate on that as much as we want. But if you don't think that's a large amount of people that believe the Bucks are the greatest tag team,
I understand that.
And if you go to Australia, they might say Aussie Open.
They're not going to say Aussie Open yet. But now, the Bucks, though, I think are there right now. I do think them. But to me, they are the third. Like, that's just how I look at them.
Yeah, but that's how we look at them.
Right. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
This is something that can be moved around. It's very similar to how we talk about the tag teams in the 80s and 90s. They're very interchangeable. The difference is you had about 6 teams in that time period that were interchangeable for the greatest team of all time.
I'll tell you this. I talked to producer Joe before about this too, and he says you can really start to see it when you start to tally up what the Usos done, how you can work it in there. But he also said too, one of the first knocks you're going to see is that they had never worked anywhere really but WWE.
Yeah.
But I'll ask you, should they be penalized for that?
I don't believe they should be penalized for that. I mean, they're gonna be,
right?
But should they be? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you a simple question, and this I think will help a little bit with this. What I mentioned before with Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano went undefeated.
Right.
One of the people that he beat during that time period was past his prime Joe Louis.
Yep.
Was Rocky Marciano a better heavyweight champion of the world than Joe Louis?
It's arguable, but I don't think so.
But it's a similar thing because Joe Louis, I mean, he did his world championships during Nazi Germany, went over, fought guys like Max Schmeling. Same thing with Muhammad Ali. You look at that time period, and it's hard to put Muhammad Ali's time period up against Rocky Marciano's just because of the quality of people and the fights that he had.
Frazier, Foreman, Ken Norton immediately come to mind.
Exactly. And now when you come to the Usos, we talk about them main eventing WrestleMania and stuff of that nature, but they main evented WrestleMania against a team that's we might not even consider a real tag team.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, as far as rivals go, really it's the New Day and the Shield.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're both phenomenal tag teams. And the problem is other teams that have been quality tag teams have not been allowed to exist in the WWE. WWE didn't even know what to do with FTR.
True. I mean, I do think that it would have been interesting to see them come back under a Triple H regime, and if they had, could Triple H have could FTR main event in WrestleMania with the Usos? Because that could have been part of the feud, you know?
Well, even look at one of the tag teams that was hot before somebody got injured. Randy Orton and Matt Riddle were making great waves as a tag team. But once again, are they a real tag team? By what standards?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was the thing that Pillman had said to Austin when Austin tells story that we need matching gear. Like if we're going to be a real tag team, we need matching gear. We need a finishing move.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't blame the Usos for any credit that's taken away from them. If I'm blaming anyone, it's the WWE for not building tag teams.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, and regardless too, there's so many great tag teams. I would think the Usos are probably going to make a top 10 if we get to the greatest tag teams of all time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sure. But it's going to be hard because you're going to want to fit the New Day in there also. Yeah. Here's one of the things about the current even tag team scene. Right now, you've got Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I can name 3 tag teams in NXT that are better straight tag teams than Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where I'm not sure that they're putting the proper build into it. When you look at teams in NXT right now, they're doing a great job of building them up and making them tag teams. Do they have a future in the WWE because they're tag team wrestlers?
There's Randy Osgood in the comments. Iron and Tully are really good. Yeah,
that's a fair statement.
Brainbusters. It's funny too when you look at tag team wrestling. Iron Anderson is one of the best tag team wrestlers of all time. I mean, Iron and Tully, Iron and Ole, Iron and Bobby Eaton. So
one of the great tag teams that you have in wrestling right now, we've got 2 of them in the WWE, and both of them have been somewhat shoved aside until recently. You've got the Viking Raiders, which are a great tag team, and then you also have the Street Profits,
right?
Who are now getting a little bit of a push with Bobby Lashley, and hopefully we're going to see that edgier side to them. But those are 2 great pure tag teams that you're not really seeing much from, other than to come out and fill the card in the middle of the show.
Hey, sidebar here real quick about those Street Profits. They come out dressed up in suits. They beat the crap out of everybody in the ring. They get cheered like crazy.
Yeah.
Bobby Lashley comes out. They're chanting Bobby Lashley. Were they supposed to be the baby faces?
I don't think they were supposed to be the baby faces, but I think that they're not leaving the WWE much choice but to actually make. And you saw the smile on Bobby Lashley's face
Right.
when the people were cheering.
They knew.
I don't think he was supposed to come out to cheers, but it's like, yeah, you guys are trying to make it so I'm not over, but look how over I am.
Yeah.
You talk about somebody who's over, but the WWE just doesn't seem to want to use them. Bobby Lashley's that guy.
And we'll finish up this today, but one more thing on the Street Profits too. Hard work. Like you talked about, your criticism of the year was always Montez Ford and the upper body. He put work into his physique. And at the same time, Dawkins has put the work in to make himself in better shape and area. And they've worked on their personalities. They've done everything you could. And they've had hell of a matches with those Usos and everybody we mentioned, but they didn't do it. And they didn't pull it.
Any criticism that I might have had of the Street Profits, they have actually fixed.
Yeah.
I am very proud of the Street Profits. They're a great tag team. Hopefully they'll let them have the run they deserve. I even believe now that Montez Ford is stronger than his wife.
There you go.
Which is saying something, because his wife is strong as hell.
Well, you know what? The Usos may not be the greatest tag team, but they're very strong. And you know who else is very strong?
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville. It's where wrestling lives.